Hi, I'm Kathy from Stitch It Together. Have you been part of Quilters Playground? If you're one of my students or if you're someone who follows me, I really encourage you to get that free education from Quilters Playground. This video is inspired by the lesson that Carla had last night, which was excellent. And it talks about a way that you can audition your patterns on your own quilts before you actually quilt them out. And so what that means is when you say you're going to audition something, you're not like setting up and then going to sew from an audition. You're just wanting to see, well, what is that going to look like on my quilt? And you want to know that before you actually do it. So last night at Quilters Playground, Carla demonstrated several ways that you can do some auditioning inside of QCT 6 Pro. And I'm only going to talk about one of those methods. She did where you auditioned an edge to edge, which is what I'm going to show you. I'm going to expand a little bit more on that. And she also showed you how you can audition patterns for blocks and if you are going to do borders and corners. And so if you are interested in doing those things, I would recommend that you absolutely, no matter what, you should go to the YouTube for Grace Frame and look up the Quilters Playgrounds. But more than that, you should register because it's free education. And who doesn't want that? So without further ado, let me show you what I do when I audition my quilts. And this is again just for an edge to edge. One of the first things that you want to do is if you don't have EQ8, because you can also do this in EQ8, you want to take a really good picture with your camera or with something that gives you a digital picture of your actual quilt. And you want to save that as a JPG or a JPEG file somewhere where you can access it on your computer. So you want to have a really good picture of that first. Now, if you have EQ8, you can also just download a picture of your quilt. And then, of course, that one is going to be perfect. So your dimensions, if your quilt isn't quite perfect, but for an auditioning, I'm sure it's going to work the same. But I like to use EQ8 an awful lot. So you can download a picture of your quilt that you've made from EQ8, which is a software program as well. So let me get started. I'm going to share my screen with you. Um, all right. And I'm going to get started. So let's move this. And here is the file that I'm going to use. Here is my quilt. It is a Halloween quilt. And as you're going to see, I just took a picture of it. And this particular quilt has a border on it. It does, but I'm not going to use that border. But if you were going to be doing the border, in addition to taking the picture, you want to know the measurements. So the measurement of my quilt is 47 across and it's 45 down. But if I was going to do a border with this and was just going to do the edge to edge on the inside, I wouldn't want the whole quilt measurement. That would throw off my scaling. I'd want to measure just the area inside of here. But for our purposes today, I'm going to do the whole quilt, and it is 47 this way and 45 that way. So let me close this down. Now I'm going to go and open QCT. And again, I am in simulation mode. So when this QCT opens up, it is going to, by default, I'm going to set a safe area that is just pre-programmed based on my frame and my sewing machine. So yours might have a little bit different measurements, but it would be because you might have a different frame or you have saved it somewhere else differently. So I'm going to go to Pantograph first because I already have my picture saved. So we're going to go to Pantograph. Again, here's the safe setting or the safe zone, and I'm just going to click OK through that. So once again, I am using the Pro software. So if you have Plus, you may have to try this on the trial version. I'm not sure if you'll be able to save with that, but oftentimes you just want to audition a quilt anyway. So I'm not really certain if you can do this if you don't have Pro and try another tier. I may have to try that out. But anyway, so the first thing I'm going to do right here is I'm going to go down to my size and I'm going to put in the size of my quilt, of my actual quilt. So it's 47 by 45. I'm going to say okay. Now, I have a pattern in mind that I want to use, and it's a gold pattern, and it's from October, I think, 2021. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my pattern, and I'll go up to patterns. I'll go to gold patterns, and I'm going to find it, 21. And it is right here. This pumpkins one right here is the one that I'm going to be auditioning. So for you, you may not know which one you want to audition yet, and you may want to try several out before you actually start saving things. That would help you cut down on the time tremendously. Like if you open it up and start setting it up and you don't like it, I wouldn't save it. But this is when you will need to save some things. So just be prepared that you're going to do that. So as this one opened up, it opened up as about 6.5. And it looks like it's probably going to need some spacing. So I would want to add that right here. And I am going to go ahead, and I kind of like this. I'm just going to go ahead and save it just like this one. And again, I didn't change the height any. I just increase the spacing just a little bit. So in order to do this, I cannot save it yet as a Power Panto. And let me explain to you why. If I try to save this as a Power Panto, again, select Power Stacker. Oops, I just undid that. Let me just set it up again. Here's the pattern. Open. Let me increase my spacing just a little bit. Good, I like that. But I can't save it as a Power Panto, or see where it says Save Power Panto? Because when I try and save this, it will have a POW if I try and save it right here. And what I need it to do is to open up in Pattern CAD. And it won't open, Pattern CAD will not open a POW file. So the easiest way for me to spoof this is to then, instead of clicking on Sew in Zones, I'm going to click on Place as a Single Pattern. And let me demonstrate and explain what's going to happen. So first, because I'm going to place it as a single pattern, it's going to go to Select and Sew instead, is what it's going to do. And you're going to see that. So instead of opening up in the quilting interface file, it's going to open up in the Select and Sew window. And it says this pattern has been resized to fit the safe area, what that means is it's taking this pattern that I have made as 47 inches in width and 45 inches in height, and it's going to shrink it to fit inside my safe zone. Remember when I set my safe zone? So it's going to shrink this pattern. That's okay. I know it's going to do that. I just need to spoof being able to save it as a GPF file. So I'm going to say, okay. And now you see it's going to open up right here as if it's a single pattern that I'm going to place as a block, which I'm not going to do. All I need to do from this window is save it. So I'm going to go right here to the save icon, and then I'm going to go to a file that I want to save it in, and I'm going to go to a file that I created called Experiment, and I am going to save it as pumpkins, and it was at 6.5 inches. I'm just going to say 6. I'm going to say save. And it says, do you wish to overwrite the file? I had already saved it, so I'm going to say yes, but you would just save your file. And now I'm done. I don't really need to do anything more with this particular size. So I'm going to X out of this, click the red box right here, and I'm back to the design screen. But since I want to try out different sizes, I want to save this one more time. This time, since this is about 6.5 inches, I want to see, well, what will it look like if I save it a lot bigger? Because really what I want to audition, since I know I like this particular pattern, I just want to audition different sizes. Now, it's a big step to go from, say, 6.5 inches to I'm going to save it as 12 inches. And you can do this in several different steps if you want, so you can see how big it's going to be. But this is for demonstration purposes. And so I am just going to go right here, and I'm going to quickly change it to 12 inches. And I'm looking at that space and I'm going, I might increase the spacing just a little bit. And now I'm going to save it again and again. I'm not going to do sew in zones, because let me show you what happens if you do that. If you were to try and save these in sew in zones, just so you understand why I wouldn't do it that way, you're going to see that it only has one zone right here. So if I were to try and save it now, I'm only saving this portion of it. So I don't want to do that. I need to save the whole thing. So let me just go back to here. And I am now going to say place as a single pattern. And I already know, yes, it's going to be resized, and I'm okay with that. But the important thing to note is that even though I'm saving it as a block, that's essentially what you're doing, it is scaled properly so that when I go into Pattern CAD and then I open up and I make it as big as what my quilt is, the picture of my quilt, I know that it will be scaled as if it really is 12 inches big. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this, and we'll save it as Pumpkins 12. And again, I already saved it once. And so I'm going to rewrite, but you probably would not get that message if it's your first time. So now I'm just going to X out of this, and I'm going to close out altogether. I can either go to the home screen or just close out altogether and go back to the home screen. And now I'm going to open in Pattern CAD. I love Pattern CAD, and I know it's very, very hard to find information on Pattern CAD, but this is a good way to like just start using it just a little bit, just to get your feet wet. So I love that Carla did this tutorial because a lot of people are afraid to use Pattern CAD. I know I was, because there isn't a lot of explanation of what things do and how to use it, but this is a good way to just kind of open it up and see one or two things that it will let you do. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up your picture of your quilt, and you're going to use it as something called a background. And so you're going to see right here that you have a background. So I'm going to go to a load an image, and you would need to go through and find your file. And since I played with it, mine is already there for me. So I'm going to open this up. So when my picture opened up, it is a little bit too big. So I would want to just click on the magnify buttons. That's what's up here in this toolbox. You can make it bigger and you can make it smaller. And so I think right like this is good for in the beginning. So the next thing that you may or may not want to do is if you also go to background, you can fade that image. See how it's getting lighter? I could go to background and I could fade it again. Now, unfortunately, if you go too far, there isn't a way to go in the opposite direction. That's okay. If you've gone too far and you want to get it back, just go and load your image again, right like this. And there we go. Another thing that you can do is you can change it to a black and white, just like this. And for my purposes, because I like this doing black and white when I'm trying to audition something, because I feel like I can see the colors a little bit better. Because I'm not really, my experience has been is it's been really hard to audition the color of a thread anyway. So I just want to really be looking for, in this particular for me, for auditioning, I'm looking, well, how big do I really want this pattern to be able to see it on my quilt can be really helpful. So I like the black and white, and you can fade it as well, but I'm just going to leave it like this. But again, if you tried black and white and then you didn't like it, you could just go to your background and reload it and start all over again. So now your picture is in the background, and now we want to try and out some of those patterns. So now we're going to go get the whole quilt that you have, but you saved it as a block. And because you saved it as a block, it's a GPF file, and now I'll be able to import it into Pattern CAD. So I'm going to go to select pattern, and I'll have to find you may come in like this. It may be like this. So you'll have to find the folder that you saved it in. And so let me try the 12 inches first. So I'm going to try the pumpkins 12 inches. And again, this is so that I can see what is the scale of this pattern on this quilt. So you're going to have to wait. Be careful that you wait long enough. There we go. So now the pattern has opened, and it looks red, and I can't really see the pattern very clearly. First of all, because it's smaller than I want it to be, but also because the nodes are on. And so to explain what nodes are, you kind of have to draw a little bit. But if I were to be drawing a pattern. I might draw a line here and then go to here, that group of blocks, and then up and then down if I was making a W. And at each one of those intersections, I would have a little circle called a node. And so I'm going to now make this a little bit bigger, the pattern, by doing this. Let me move this. I'm going to say over here, I have some boxes that help me edit things. And so first of all, I want to make sure that I'm not in draw. You might be in draw. I think it usually opens up in edit first, but you want to make sure that you are in edit and not in draw. And then you're going to use the select tools. So you have different functions over here, and then the function that is right here in the select, all of the other boxes will have to do with select. So when I'm picking select, I want to say select all. I want all of my nodes, the whole pattern. You can see it got much darker. That means all of those nodes were selected. And so now I want to make it bigger. So now I'm going to select the function that's right here, size, and you will need to wait until these buttons change. There, now you've seen them that they've changed. And I'm going to do something here because we're auditioning. This is the lock button for the ratio, for your ratio scale. I want this to grow bigger and wider so wider and tall at the same rate so I don't change or distort this pattern. So I want to make sure that that one is locked. Another function that is in the size functions is how big it will grow in any one click, and that is called your step. And tiny is really tiny, and we need to grow this quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and say jumbo. And now, because I have the ratio lock, so long as I pick one of the get bigger arrows, so this would grow it taller, but because the lock is on, it's going to make it bigger in both directions. And this is a pretty big pattern, so I am going to be patient when it moves, and I'm not going to hit it before it actually does move. And so that might be a little bit bigger than what I'm wanting, and now I can still not see that pattern. So in order to be able to see the pattern more clearly, I want to go over here to nodes, and I want to remove the nodes so that all I can see is the pattern. There you go. So while this is just a little bit bigger than my quilt, I can make it exact by going over here and now clicking on small. I'm going to change the step, and now I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And that's about right. I'm good with that because, again, all I'm trying to do is audition or look at what will this quilt look like when the pattern is at 12 inches. And so I'm looking at this, and this is pretty big. It depends on what you're going for. I know that 12 inches will fit within my throat space. So I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong because you decide whether this is a size that you like or that you don't like. But I'm looking at this, and I can see now what is this pattern going to look like when this pattern that I created is 12 inches big. So if you can't see your pattern very clearly, you can go to this option right up here called Options and click on it. Then you're going to go to the box that says Pattern CAD, and you would look at the lines functions right here, and you see I made mine orange. They're not orange by default. I had made it orange earlier. But you can change the color of your line right over here. Let's say if we wanted to make it pink. You can also change how thick that line is. You can make it bigger. So let's see what happens. Let me say okay to pink. And then we can make the line bigger just a little bit. Let's go to 4. And then I would say okay. And now you can see it. It's brighter. So you have the options of making the thickness bigger so you can see it more. And so that is what it looks like in a different color. So that might allow you to see more clearly what is this really going to look like on my quilt at 12 inches. So now let's go and see what it's going to look like in a different size. In order to do that, I can keep the background. And if you were to clear it by accident, you just reload it. So this is just going to clear my pattern. So I'm going to click the red X button right here, and that clears my pattern. And I'm going to leave this just as it is. I'm going to go back to select pattern, and now I'm going to pick the one that I saved at 6 inches. So let me open that up, and I'm going to be patient because this one is going to have more nodes in it or a larger amount of the pattern. So it's going to take a little bit longer to load. So now we can see it in pink. And I think I want to change that back. Let's just, so you can see how you can do it again. I'm going to say maybe I want it to be, let's just try green this time. I'll say, okay. And I didn't like the line width at 4, so let me just change it to 2. I kind of liked that one. So I'm going to say, okay. And so this time I already have turned my nodes off, so I can see more clearly the pattern. But if I were to select the nodes, it would turn red again because I did not change the color of my nodes. So if you're seeing red, you might realize that your nodes are on. And you can still size it without your nodes on too. So I'm going to turn the nodes off. I'm going to go over here and I need to change so I see all of the move or the size functions right here. And I don't want those first. I need to select my pattern. So I'm going to go to the select function right here. I'm going to wait for all the buttons to change. And now I'm going to go select all. I'm going to wait a few seconds until I feel like all of the nodes are selected. When you don't have the nodes on, I can't tell because without the nodes on, they're not going to turn dark red. So I'm just going to give it a few seconds. And then I'm going to go to size. I'm going to wait for all the buttons to change. I'm going to make sure that the lock ratio is still selected. And I know I need to make it much bigger, so I'm going to go, let's try jumbo, and then I'm going to increase the size. I'm going to wait a few seconds every jump. Otherwise, you'll get a timing message, and your screen might shrink. Give it a second, and it will probably come back. If not, you may have to close down QCT and open it back up. And that can happen, particularly when a pattern is very large. And there's a lot of quilting in this. So when you're sizing, you just need to be patient. So there we go. So now I can see what it would look like if my pattern is at 6 inches as opposed to 12 inches. And I can again go and I can change the color if I don't like the color. If that is a distracting color, I can just go back to another color. I can say, okay. Oops, I got to say, okay, over here. And then, okay, over here. And now it's in a manner that I can see it. And one of the other things that you may want to do, let me move this just a little bit, is you can, if you can't really tell by the size of this screen right here and the size of your quilt, if you like that or not, you can again use the magnify buttons right here to make it all bigger, and it's all going to get bigger all at once. So now I can see by magnifying a little bit if I like this size or not. And you can again, so I did it at 6 inches and at 12 inches, but you could do it at a whole bunch of inches or different sizes and put them onto your quilt just like that. And hopefully that will give you a better idea of what size you really want your pattern. I hope this helps you. If you have any questions, I'm at Stitch It Together LLC on Facebook. You can private message me. And I'm at stitchittogether@outlook.com if you'd like to email me. Thank you for watching.